This is a map showing what would have happened in the 2016 election if only 18 to 25-year-olds voted. Hillary Clinton would have won with more than 500 electoral votes. So this is an equally important front in the war, the long war for America. Looks pretty hopeless, doesn't it? Well, maybe not. And this is why we've asked our speaker here tonight to join us, because he saw the same map after the 2016 election and realized the importance of that for the future of the country, because if something's not done about it, that's the future of our country. People like that. So he's going to tell us more what he has in mind on this. Bill Whittle is a longtime political commentator. He's been on Fox News and places like this. You can find his work at billwhittle.com and on YouTube. I find that he's almost unique in his ability to weave facts, but also emotion into his arguments. Does great presentations, and if you don't follow his work, I would recommend that you do so, because he does do great work. Here tonight, his primary focus is going to be this. He has something called the Aurora Project. It is to reach the next generation and not so much persuade them, but just help them realize that they really are conservatives, notwithstanding all of the indoctrination they've received in the culture and in Hollywood and in the mass entertainment. Enough from me. Bill Whittle, come on up. We very much appreciate you coming out. After we're done, we will realize that there is some hope for the country and the next generation after all.
Thanks very much. Hi, everybody. Hi, Yaf. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to talk to you guys after I'm done, because of all the people in the room today, the people whose opinion that's going to matter the most is your opinion. So this one is for you guys. I want to just start by saying, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. And the first part of my job, as always, is to scare the daylights out of you. That shouldn't be too tough. It'll take me a minute or two, I guess. Everybody's pretty concerned for the future of this country, but actually I have a little bit updated map. So can I see number 1, please? There we go. There we go. This is actually a map of how the country would vote if the election were held tomorrow and only millennials voted. This is what millennials would vote for tomorrow: generic Democrat for president, generic Republican. You can see that we do carry Utah with 6 electoral votes, and the final score is 532 to 6. I'd love to tell you that this is a projection of what's going to happen if we don't do something, but it's not. This is the way the country is right now. It's the way it is right this second. People under 35 years old or so, under 30, if only they voted, that's the result. And you may look at that map and you should feel some despair. I know the first time I saw it, I thought, what do you do against this? But there's some good news buried in this, and I'll get to that in a second. But this is the future of the country. As a matter of fact, I should correct myself. This is the present of the country. And the reason that map is blue is because the left has paid for it to be blue. They've paid trillions of dollars for it to be blue. You think that George Soros putting $35 billion with a B, $35 billion into his programs like Media Matters, you think that's a big influence? It's nothing compared to what the pop culture spends on television, movies, comedy, all the news media bias, all of that stuff. And if we don't get into this fight, and I don't even get into this fight quickly, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So let me tell you about this idea I had, but first let me uncork this water here. I damn near drank the microphone. Okay. So here's the thing. If you look at this map, you'll be filled with despair, and you'll think, well, there's possibly no way we can turn this around. But I do have some good news for you. And the good news is this. This blue sea you see here, this ocean, is very wide and it's very big, obviously. But the good news is it's actually pretty shallow. What I mean by that is, if you look at the people who this map represents, if you were to go up and ask millennials about who they'd vote for, most of them would tell you they'd vote for Bernie Sanders. Most millennials will tell you that they're socialists. Most millennials will vote Democrat down the ticket. And this is the way things are right now. And if that were the case, if that's all we had, I think it would be time to pack up our beans and ammo and head to the hills and just kind of wait for the fire. But there's much, much better news than that. Much, much better news in this map. Because here's the thing. This is how young people vote, and this is how young people talk, and this is what young people discuss, but that's not how young people act. For example, I went to Oberlin College a couple years ago. Oberlin is the most liberal college in America. It's where reason and logic go to die. And I was standing in a room full of people at Oberlin College, and I asked, how many of you up there in Oberlin here, how many of you guys would call yourself socialists? 7 out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10 said yes. And this was 2012. But here's the good news. So I said, okay, socialists, what kind of phones have you got? I've got an iPhone here, I've got an iPhone 10, and what kind of phones do you have? And they said, well, what do you want to know? I said, I'm just curious, what kind of phones do you have? And they're holding them up, and they've got Androids and Galaxies, they've got iPhones and all the rest. So I said, okay, socialists, since you believe from each according to his ability to each according to his needs, since you believe about redistributing wealth, let's bring all the cell phones down to the front here. I'm not going to steal them from you, I'm not a Democrat, I'm just going to put them in a basket here. And then we're going to take the basket, after I'm finished talking, there's easily $2,000 worth of electronics out in this room. So after I'm done, all of us together are going to take this basket, going to go to downtown Cleveland, we're going to find a pawn shop, we're going to get $2,000, and then we will drive through the streets of Cleveland, Ohio, handing out $120 bills to people who are in much greater need than you, so bring them down. And guess what didn't happen? One kid actually had the nerve to say, honestly, man, he said, but this is mine. I said, well, technically speaking, it's your dad's, but let's not split hairs here. Yes, it's yours. It's yours. And so when you ask them to do this, what you find is they're not so willing to redistribute their own property. What you find about young people, when you find about millennials, is this idea of socialism and wealth redistribution. They like that idea very much, as long as it's somebody else's wealth being distributed to them. But when it's time to distribute their own wealth to people who are less fortunate than they are, which is what socialism is all about, all of a sudden I'm looking at a room full of rock-ribbed conservatives. William F. Buckley's up there, every single one of them. What? Thank you. One time, I was talking to a young person, and he said, well, you're a defender of capitalism, but you can't possibly defend the idea that somebody could have more than one house. I mean, that with all the homeless people in the country, the idea of having more than one house is just ridiculous. You can't live in more than one house at a time. It's disgusting. And once again, just kind of thinking on my feet, I said, hey, do me a favor, check your phone and tell me how many songs you have on your phone. He said, what do you want to know that for? I said, I'm just curious, man, how many songs do you have? He says, I don't know, 750. I said, okay, 750 songs, so let's see. Every one of those is about $1 to download. Do you really need 750 songs? Do you listen to all 750 songs at the same time? Couldn't you get by on just 50 songs? As a matter of fact, if you lived on 50 songs, that's $700 that you could have donated to poor people, and you used it to buy music that you hardly ever listen to. I'm embarrassed to be seen in the same room as somebody as low as you are. And what you find is they go into vapor lock. They go into vapor lock because you've confronted them with their own behaviors. You've confronted them with their own behaviors. I say, a guy who makes a lot of money has 3 houses. He spends his money on what he wants. You're spending your money on what you want, and you shouldn't have to listen to anybody, me or anybody else, tell you what you want to spend your own money on. So my point is, they're completely indoctrinated. They're completely told what to think, how to think, where to think, and so on. And this has been going on for a long time, and I cannot stress this strongly enough. This is not the future, and this is not an emotional thing. This is how they vote. So, why am I here talking about video games? Well, as it turns out, I am the oldest video game player in the world. I'm going to turn 60 in April. And if I'd been a year older, I would have missed it, but I didn't miss it. I saw every single thing. I have been playing video games for 35, 40 years. And here's the good news. If you look at this map, more and more people, more and more millennials spend more and more time every single day playing computer games. Every single day, more and more people spending more and more time down in the basement or whatever, playing video games. And how many of you know, I'm sure nobody here has really spent a lot of time on video games, but how many of you here know a grandson or a nephew or a niece or something who's just vanished, they've just disappeared, you never see them anymore because they're in there playing video games all the time? Anybody had that experience? Pretty much everybody. Okay, now we're getting to the point. Here's the point. What do you do? What do you actually do when you're playing a computer game? What do you actually do when you're playing a video game? Well, it turns out when you're playing a computer game, you pretty much do two things. You make money and you buy weapons. And I thought, wait a minute now. I like to make money and I like to buy weapons. And I'm a conservative. So why are all these millennials, why are all these socialists, why are all these Bernie supporters spending 6, 7, 8 hours a day in a world where they're making money and buying weapons? And that's when it hit me like a thunderbolt. Millennials are spending more and more time in computer games every single day because computer games allow them to behave like conservatives. They're escaping from this world that they've created up here. They're escaping from a world where men are told that they're just defective girls and potential rapists and all the rest. They're leaving. They're checking out. They know it's not worth fighting. They know these guys from YAF will tell you what it's like to stand up on one of these campuses. They've got the guts to stand up, but most people don't. They just keep their head quiet. They nod, yeah. And what they're doing is they are running away from this world that the left has created, and they are retreating into a world where they get to blow things up, drive fast, shoot the bad guys, have an adventure, have a life, be a hero. In other words, they're going into the world where they can act like conservatives. And they're doing it enthusiastically. There was a video game released a couple months ago called Red Dead Redemption No. 2. That game in 2.5 days made $550 million. So, they're spending their own money and their own time to live in a world free of the social justice warriors where they can act like conservatives. And there's something else even better in terms of the mood, because we are sitting on a real opportunity here. I knew Andrew Breitbart quite well. We were pretty close friends. And when he said that politics is downstream of culture, he's absolutely right. And the pop culture right now, whether you like it or not, is what's making this map blue. So we got to get into that pop culture. And here's another thing that I think is very, very important. How many of you out there have been hypnotized? Raise your hand if you've been hypnotized to the point where you've had hypnotic suggestion. Anybody? 2, 3? Well, I hate to break this to you, but you've all been hypnotized, and you've all been hypnotized hundreds of thousands of times, and you've paid people to hypnotize you hundreds of thousands of times. Because if you go to a movie theater here in Redlands, and you watch an afternoon showing of Nightmare on Elm Street or something, you'll be sitting there in the afternoon, and it'll be 106 degrees outside. And you will be in there in a dark room with a box of popcorn and a big Coke. You're surrounded by 400 other people in the middle of broad daylight. And when Freddy Krueger steps out of that basement with his big knives, you will, or a werewolf or whatever, you will leap out of your skin. You'll leap out of your skin. If you've ever been in a horror movie, you will leap out of your skin because you are being hypnotized. When you watch a movie or a play or TV, you lower your critical abilities. It's called the willing suspension of disbelief. It means that I'm going to stop thinking critically about what I'm seeing, and I'm going to believe in a world where there are dungeons and dragons. I'm going to believe in a world where there are murderers in your dreams and starfighters. I'm going to buy it. Okay, so you lower your defenses. Not talking to your head anymore, talking straight to your emotions. And when I say that you've been hypnotized hundreds of thousands of times, I know a lot of you are skeptical, so allow me to prove this to you right now. I'm going to start a sentence that has been hypnotically placed in all of your minds. I'm going to start the sentence, and you're going to finish it for me. Ready? Here we go. Look up in the sky, it's a bird. No one had to check their phones on that. No one had to go to the Superman website. Nobody had to think about it. Nobody had to go, who could that be? You knew it. You knew it instantly. You knew it instantly because, like me, you watched the Superman TV shows mostly when you were a kid, and you knew that Superman stood for truth, justice, and the American way. And all of the values that Superman represents, all of the goodness that Superman represents, went into your heads the exact same way as, look, up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. It's in there now. So you've been hypnotized to believe these things and understand these things, and in a world where you're watching movies like It's a Wonderful Life, you have good people, and good people vote like good people. But if you have nothing but hypnosis in terms of movies and TV shows, and the message is negative, this is what you get. So here's one none of you will know, but you guys will know. Here's what the younger generation's being hypnotized into. Don't leave me embarrassed up here, guys. Ready? Finish the sentence for me. Ready? It seems today that all you see. Okay, that's the opening to Family Guy, which is an anti-capitalist, anti-Christian, anti-American cartoon that is very, very, very successful and very, very funny, and they've been hypnotized with a different message than you have, and that's why this map is blue. So, we got to get into this game. We got to get into this game right now. So, what am I talking about? Well, let me show you one more thing. By the way, tonight's presentation is PG rated. I just want to warn people. There's nothing I couldn't put on the air, but it's PG. Because we're going to reach young people, we got to go where they are. If we're going to reach young people, we have to go where young people are, and they're in a world that looks a little bit like some of the things I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you something here. Can you play number 2, please? And you can turn the sound down. There we go. That's right, number 2. All right, let me show you something. These are scenes from a video game called Grand Theft Auto 5, Part 5. The person doing the shooting is a human. The people who are being killed are computer-generated characters. The person who's got the gun or the weapon is probably a 14-year-old kid in some basement someplace, or maybe he's out back or he's in bedroom or something. But the person doing the shooting or the stabbing and all the rest is an actual human being, almost certainly a young man, and he's not doing this to get money, he's doing it for fun. For fun. Yeah. And the graphics are very realistic, and they just keep on hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting. And that's because this world is not an immoral world, it's an amoral world. There is no morality in this world. You can do whatever you want to in this world, and people's best and their worst instincts will come out. For instance, you decide to beg for mercy. Well, I wouldn't want to beg for mercy from some millennials out there, because if you beg for mercy, that's what you get. Now, I want to show you one more thing. This is Santa Monica. My wife, Natasha, my beautiful wife over there, and I have had dinner behind that window right there. It's absolutely photorealistic view of Santa Monica, and the people playing Grand Theft Auto are doing nothing with their time but running down there and gunning people down because they think it's fun. There's no direction in there, there's no nothing. Okay, you can stop it, thanks. I think people probably had enough of this. So, here's what I want to do, and let me be crystal clear about this. This is Grand Theft Auto. Let me just say this so that everybody gets it. I'm not talking about making a conservative video game, because if I did make a conservative video game, nobody would play it. What would we call it? It's not Grand Theft Auto. What would we call it? Fully insured SUV. And you get into your car and you go down to the bank and make a deposit, then you come home and have dinner with your wife, and it's all in incredible graphics. Nobody's going to play a computer game that's made by conservatives, and they don't have to. They don't have to, because you can't beat the biology. Young men will go down there and do whatever is interesting to them. So when I talk about entertainment, I'm talking as a guy who's done thousands of videos and have had probably 80 million views. And those days are over for me, because they're not watching the message. You're watching the message, they're not watching the message. The blue map is not watching the message. We have to get them to want to watch a message. Because when you've got the internet, you have so many different options and so many different choices. You can go anywhere. I had somebody say, they ought to make somebody, they ought to say to somebody, we should take $25 away from your allowance unless you watch a Bill Whittle video every week. To which I replied, well, then they'll take the $25 cut in allowance. That's what they'll do. They don't have to watch anything. So what we have to do is we have to make something that they want to watch. And I want to take one more little diversion about my friend Andrew Breitbart and the pop culture, because time is very important for us right now, and very, very easy. Now, we have some young people here. This does not mean anything to you, but let me explain. I could go up to any group of people this age, anybody in the country, and I could ask them one question, and I will get the same answer. Are you ready? Who shot first? Who shot first? Han Solo. Yes, she's absolutely right. Han Solo shot first. Let me tell you what this means. You may have heard of a movie called Star Wars. Star Wars came out in 1977, year I graduated high school. In this movie, you've got this incredibly likable character named Han Solo. And he's a rogue and he's a real man. And in this movie, there's a scene where he's apprehended by a bounty hunter who puts a gun to his head and tells him to sit down in this booth, and with the gun leveled right at him the whole time, he says, he's a little green reptile guy, he says, all right, Han Solo, I'm going to take you to Jabba the Hutt, and he's going to kill you because you've made a big rob and ripped him off and stuff, and I can't wait to see you die. And then Han Solo, underneath the table, has released his blaster from his holster, and he says, I bet you can't. Pachoon! And he blows this little lizard away. And he falls down face first dead on the ground. And that's Star Wars, and that's what happened in 1977. But in 1998, they re-released Star Wars, and they made a bunch of different little changes to it. And one of the changes they made was they made it so that the alien shot first. Because George Lucas said, oh, I'm against this whole gun violence thing. I don't want Han Solo to be a murderer. You know, he wouldn't shoot first. We're going to let the other guy shoot first. They altered the video, they added special effects, and they changed it so that Han Solo didn't shoot first, the reptile shot first, and you cannot find a copy of what people originally saw for love or money. You cannot find the original version where Han shot first anywhere except on VHS tape. They have removed what actually happened, replaced it what they wanted to happen, and taken what actually happened and made sure that nobody can see it. They're rewriting history in front of people's eyes. And the reason Star Wars matters, folks, is because whether you like it or not, Star Wars is the religion of post-Christian America. For that entire blue map generation, Star Wars is a religion. It has all the elements of religion. It's got a Messiah, it's got prophets, it's got an afterlife, it has magical powers, regeneration, resurrection, all of those things. And the left has destroyed Star Wars. And the left is destroying video games. And what that means is this. All of these young people who are leaving this world to go live in a world of Star Wars and video games find to their amazement and their unbridled fury that the left is following them down now, and they're wrecking video games and they're wrecking Star Wars with their social justice nonsense. For example, they just released a game called Battlefield 5. It's set in World War II, and they decided that since it's all about inclusion, when we have the 82nd Airborne Division jumping out of their planes in Normandy, we're going to have every other person be a woman. No, we're going to have every other person be a woman. And the players are saying, no, wait a minute, you know, that just takes us out of the game. That's not right. And then the game designers say, what a bunch of ignorant, racist, women-hating misogynists you are for saying so. And then these game players are saying, whoa, we like women game players, we like women characters, there's lots of games, but this is World War II. And the guy who ran that studio said something, and here's what he said. When he decided to include women in this World War II combat game, he said, well, my daughter plays Fortnite, which is a very popular game. And my daughter asked me, Daddy, why is it that I can't play anybody in this game that you're making? Why isn't there anybody there that looks like me? He said, what am I going to tell this little girl? I would have told the little girl, the reason there's no women in combat, because the men were going to fight and die so that the women wouldn't have to. That's what I would tell her. I'd start there. And I would start to explain to them what all of this is about, but that's not what they did. They put their ideology into the game and ruined the game, so nobody bought it. I'm telling you all of this stuff that may not mean much to you, only to tell you that the moment is right. The young people in this country do not identify as conservatives, but they hate the left. They hate them. They hate the social justice warriors. They hate this feminism. They hate this political correctness. They hate it, hate it, hate it. So they're spending more and more time in video games. So let's move on. I want to start by doing something. I said I'm not going to make a video game, but I am going to ride on the backs of video games. So can you play number 3 for me? I'm not going to mention this game by name, but I saw this come out about a year ago, I guess. And this game is happening in real time. Everything you see here is real people in real time. This is what the game looks like. And I said, my God, this looks so good. The effects are so incredible. Look at the spaceships you got. Each one of those is an individual person, maybe in China, maybe in Brooklyn, maybe in Redlands, who knows. And I looked at the quality of this thing and I said, you know, this is incredible. This game was crowdfunded. It was a Kickstarter campaign. Do you want to know how much money they raised to make this video game? From regular game players, from millennials mostly? Want to take a guess? $220 million. And it's all there. It's all there on the screen. What do you have here? You've got lasers, you've got action, you've got spaceships, you've got blowing up dynamite, you've got space battles, you've got everything that everybody's interested in that they want to watch. And I realized that this is a $220 million puppet show that we can use to start giving messages to young people so that instead of having to ram it down their throats and bribe them to watch it, I want them to contact me and ask me, when is the next episode of this thing going to be released? When does the next episode come? Because I can't wait to see it. This is what people will watch. This is what people will watch, and if you can put your message into that, then you will get their attention, and I mean to do exactly that. So, I want to introduce you to somebody who you're probably going to get to know a little better. Number 4, please. And you may be wondering who this fella is, and I'll tell you. That's me. That's who that is. Because I decided that if I'm going to talk to young people, I've got a better chance of doing it as a 38-year-old fighter pilot in a space battle than I do as a 60-year-old conservative standing in front of a lake of fire. So this is me. And it's going to be voiced by people, got a couple big actors in mind. I think we would probably do it, conservative actors. But this person never gets old, and this person looks like they mean business, and this person wearing a gun everywhere he goes because it's the future. And in the future, you have to wear guns. And this is the face that is going to get people interested in watching these programs. Now, just to give you a little idea, this is a little saucy, but just to show you some of the power of images, this goes right to the brainstem. And this guy is, my main character's name is John Boyd. I did all of these characters myself, by the way, just put them together. It took me about a year. He's a fighter pilot, and he commands a fighter squadron of real players in the game. We've got about 150 people playing the game right now. And he's the commander of one of the fighter squadrons called the Eagles. And I showed this picture to a guy who's the commander of another fighter squadron called the Wolf Pack, and he said, nice uniform, looks a little gay. Looks a little effeminate, like pajamas. He said, our uniforms are black and red, and they look much tougher. So I said, okay. I did a couple of pictures to contrast the two. So this is my little propaganda response. Can we see the next one? You can just tap through. There's the really tough-looking black and red uniforms, and here's the gay kind of blue and gray. And you can just go through the next couple. Yeah, you can just tap through the next 3 or 4. And I'm doing this for one reason. I'm doing it because it's fun and interesting, and the people who are playing the game are going to enjoy it. And I'm setting this up as a gag within the game, but I'm also saying something. What I'm saying is, which one of these 2 people lives in Hollywood, California? Next one. And I'm also saying, one more. I'm also saying, back one. Yep, there you go. I'm also saying, which one of these people do you think is exhibiting toxic masculinity? But what I'm really saying is, which one of these fighter squadrons do you want to join? And young people, every single one of them, want to be this guy. And none of them want to be this guy. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Nobody wants to be this guy. And we are showing people, we're not telling them, we're showing them that there's a difference between these lifestyles. There's a difference between these kind of people, and has the power of the image. So let me show you what we've done here. Number 10, please. I started making these characters about a year ago. And a year ago, that's what I had. That's the best work I could do a year ago. Can we go to number 11, please? And that's what I did a couple days ago. Now, you know what these people have in common? Well, they're all conservatives is what they have in common. They're all conservatives. I make them all talk. I hire actors, I write their lines. I make them say whatever I want them to say. This is the leader of the fighter squadron. This is his best friend who's been there forever with him. All the rest of these people are young and new. It's multicultural, it's multiracial, but that's not important. What matters is, this looks like the future. Now, I've done Tea Party events for the last 10 years. And I love Tea Party events and I love Tea Parties. But folks, here's the problem. When you show When you show a young person who's specifically never been taught about American history, it's been excluded from their lives, and you invite them to a Tea Party event, and I'm standing on the stage, and behind me is a picture of the Constitution, and there's the writing on the parchment, and there's Ben Franklin, and here's the Gadsden flag. You show that to a millennial today and say, this is our political philosophy, this is what we want you to get behind. It's 250 years old. And they look and they see tri-cornered hats, and they see ruffled shirts, and they see muskets, and they say, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? You're trying to drag us into leg breeches and button-down waistcoats and stuff, and you've got a flag with a snake on it, and you're saying it's 250 years old? Are you out of your mind? I don't want anything to do with that. So what we have to do is we have to take those principles and get them out of the past and put them into the future. We have to take conservatism out of the past and move it into the future. We have to take America from 1776 in Boston to outer space 1,000 years from now, because if we take those principles into the future and we have all of this flash, people will watch the message. So, I'm going to tell you, with the last of my time here, to give you an idea of what these messages look like, let me just tell you what I plan to do. I plan to do a series of 6 or 7 minute long science fiction shorts featuring characters that look kind of like this. And we're going to do one every 2 weeks if we can, and people are going to want to watch them. But here's the thing. There's going to be a message in these videos. And if people watching are able to detect what the message is, then I have failed catastrophically. They can't know what the message is. I'll show you how that works. But have you ever had to give your dog medicine? You ever had to put a nasty old pill down the mouth of a dog? There's really 2 ways you can do that. You can lock him between your knees and pry his jaws open and shove that pill down his throat and have him cough and gag and have him run away. Or you can take that pill and wrap it up inside a chewy dog treat, and he will wolf that pill down, and he'll wolf 50 more pills down too, because he doesn't know the message is in there. He doesn't taste the medicine. He just tastes the treat. This is exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take this American idea and put it inside a tasty little dog treat that looks like this, so people come and watch for the lasers, but they stay for the freedom. See, it's really pretty simple. We're going to take all of the trappings of the pop culture, and we're going to put one single message into each one of these little episodes, and I'm going to demonstrate to you how I'm actually going to do that. Here's the first story, and this will give you a real good idea of what I'm talking about. Here's the first, you can stay there, please. Sorry. There we go. Whichever one we were just on, that would be, number 11. There we go. Okay, so this is a fighter squadron. It's 1,000 years in the future. The Earth is running an empire. It's decaying and so on. This guy's a fighter pilot, and he is training new people, and they're outgunned, and they're outmanned, and they're outspent, and all of these young people that he's training are getting killed because the government doesn't give a damn about their soldiers. You know if any of this sounds familiar to you. He's a hero, but they can't kick him out of the military, so they're making his life intolerable. They're making it for an honorable man to be intolerable to stay in the service. So, he's on a mission. You see these spaceships, there's all kinds of space battles, and one of the young guys, maybe that guy over there, is coming back, and he's all shot up, and he tries to get him to the space station before he bleeds out, but he doesn't do it. The young guy who's in his care bleeds out, hits the space station, big enormous explosion, and our guy here, John Boyd, who's based on a real character, by the way, says, I've had enough. I can't take it anymore. His best friend here, Sledge, this guy, says, come on, I'll take you down to the planet. We'll get ourselves some drinks and a dinner and some kinetic entertainment. Now, fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. Get a little bumpy here. So, we see number 12, please. So these two guys go down to the planet, which looks like that. And then the next one, and then the one after that, please. And when they get down to the planet, this is what they see. This is a science fiction world, and you'll notice that it's interesting, it's dark, it's cool, and it's sexy. One more, please. And as they walk deeper and deeper into this town, looking for this bar, it gets seedier and nastier and grittier and more real, more and more interesting, more and more forbidden, more and more everything that young people want to see. And so, the next one, please, number 15. And so here are the characters that they're going to meet on the way to this bar. Now, I made all these characters, took a little time, but you know what these people have in common? These are all conservatives too. You see this stripper here, the tall blonde? She's a conservative. I make her say whatever she wants to say. If I want her to say something that the liberals would like for a reason, I'll have her say that. This guy is a conservative. That guy's a conservative. Freaked out drug guy here, he's a conservative. This woman here has been all torn up and battered. She's a conservative. They're all conservatives, but people don't know they're conservatives because they don't look like conservatives, because I have been doing this for 10 years and I have never once ever seen Ben Shapiro or any of these other people that I have enormous respect for ever put out a message that looked like this. Ever. But this is where they're watching. This is where they are. Young Americans for Freedom and TPUSA, Ben Shapiro, they're holding the line, but nobody's going downstream. Nobody's going long. Nobody's trying to influence the upcoming generation. So these are the characters they meet on their way to this bar. And I'm going to play for you an animation. It's about 60 seconds long. And this is a commercial for the nightclub that they're going to. The nightclub that they're going to is called Sid's. And hang on one second. And Sid's is a dance club. And Sid likes the idea of not being able to tell the difference between humans and robots. He likes to blur that line. So I'm going to show you a commercial. This is not the video, it's a commercial for this strip club in the future. And all I want you to do is this. I just want you to imagine a young 25-year-old male watching this, and you tell me if they'd rather watch this or watch a firewall. So can I see number 16 with the sound up, please? Now I say this with the highest admiration for Dennis Prager, but if you put young people down and you show them one of these versus a Dennis Prager video, I can tell you which one every single one of them is going to watch. Every single one of them. I have a plan to turn this entire generation and make them realize that they're conservatives. I can't guarantee that they'll all be conservatives, but I can guarantee that they will all be heterosexual. That I can promise you. Because some people have used the brain to sell conservatism, some people have used memory, some people have used the heart. No one's using emotion, and no one's using sex appeal either. And this is what we sell cars on, everything. When you see the news, you see a young, attractive people. We have to understand the power of images like that, because all we're trying to do is to get the dog to eat the medicine. So what's the medicine? Well, they go down to this club, and as they're outside the club, we've seen all the people on the street, and they get to the door of the club, and on the front of the door is a sign, and the sign says, "Attention. For the safety of our customers, Sid's is now a gun-free zone. Weapons will be checked at the door. Thank you, the management." And these two guys look at each other and say, "We're not going in there unarmed. Are you crazy?" And just as they're about to walk away and try and find someplace else, they look around and they say, "Man, it's quiet in here. It's 12:15 on a Saturday night. Usually there's a line out the door. There's people banging to get in. It's not a living soul here." They look around the corner, look down the foyer, and it's absolutely empty. In the cash box where they're taking people's money, there's nobody there either. So these guys say, "What happened? Did the place close down?" They start walking into this room, and as they turn the corner, number 17, please. As they turn the corner, these robots are dancing. This is an actual human being, but as they turn the corner, this entire club, next one please, 18. The entire club is absolutely silent, and she is doing her aerial routine, but she's not smiling anymore because she's dead. She's shot to hell. There's bullets all over her. And as these guys walk into this science fiction club with these robots out there, they pull their weapons and they start walking through this club because now they're naval officers, not a joke anymore. And as they start walking through this foggy room with all these lasers and lights, they stumble over some bodies and they look on the ground and they find out that an entire group of people, 50, 60 people, have been murdered and their faces have been cut off. And as these guys are walking through the room trying to make sure that there's none of these guys left, the two guys, the tall guy and Sledge, his friend, bump up against each other and say, "What the hell happened here?" And the tall guy says, "I guess somebody didn't read the sign." And that's all I do. That's it. That's the message right there. That's all. And then I show a survivor, and that's it. 6, 7 minutes. I do all of that to do that one thing. So what have I accomplished? Well, here's what I've accomplished. I could stand here and talk to you about the Second Amendment, and you people understand why there's a Second Amendment. But young people have been told that the Second Amendment and owning a gun is a sign of a psychopath, and that if you own a gun, there's something really, really wrong with you. And so you can go to a university and see a no-gun zone here. And what I've done is I haven't told you, I've shown you how ridiculous it is to assume that because there's a sign up that says no murder here, that people are going to listen to the sign. Who's going to believe that? I'm going to show people in a way that they will watch the aftermath of a massacre in a gun-free zone. And the only message I'm saying is for this one guy who is fully armed to say to the other guy who's fully armed, "I guess somebody didn't read the sign." And by saying that and showing these bodies and stuff, I've done something that I can't do as a speaker. I've shown them how absurd this idea is. I've shown them how ridiculous this idea is. "Oh, there's no murder here? I'm sorry. I didn't read the sign. I thought it was a murder." No. I've shown them how ridiculous it is. And now they want to wait and see what happens next, which is the next episode. Number 19, please. So, here we go again. Here's the map. Let me just leave you with this. These people vote Democrat. They're all socialists. They're all Democrats. They love Bernie Sanders. They love socialism. They love all of these things. That's what they tell you. And that's what they believe. But that's not how they act. If you leave them alone, this blue map will not sell their cell phones to give money to poor people. They'll keep their property. And when you leave these blue people alone, what they do is they go into a world where they get to shoot things and drive fast and make money and have hot women and get a pat on the back from the sergeant and be heroes, because you cannot beat the biology. Young men are going to be young men no matter what the feminist left tells them. They're still going to be young men. And what I realized about this map is that all of these young people, starting with the young men, are voting blue because they're not allowed to do anything else. But what they are doing when they're allowed to is they are escaping from this world and going down to a world where you can shoot things and make money and work and have adventures and be a hero. In a way, in a really strange and awkward way, the world of the video game is more real than our world, because in a video game, there are consequences to your actions, and you have to defend yourself, and you have to work to make money, and rewards are linked to effort. That's in the video game world. Out here, nothing. Out here, nothing. It's just participation trophies for everybody. They are leaving our world because in the game world, they get to experience the same kind of reality that we all experience. They get to experience a reality where young men can be heroes. They get to experience a reality where they can drive fast and do exciting things instead of sit there in a corner and be told that they have to wear a bike in the shower because a bike helmet in the shower because they might fall down and California knows better for you than you do. They are leaving the social justice world. They're leaving en masse, and they are going into a cybernetic world that gets more real every day, gets more believable every day, and they're doing it because they are conservatives in their heart. They're conservatives. They know what they're supposed to say. Leave them alone, give them their own time and their own money, and they will spend both living in a world where they get to act like conservatives. So number 20, please. I know everybody's hitting you up for money. We're starting a 501c3 foundation to make these videos, and if you want to be a part of it, that's fine, but I'm not here to tell you about the donation. I'm here to tell you that there is hope for the future because we don't need to change these people's minds, and we don't need to change their behaviors. We just have to tell them it's okay to do in the real world what you're doing on your own time anyway. We have to tell them that it's okay to make money because you're making money in the virtual world. It's okay to defend yourself because you would never go out without a gun in the virtual world. You're already behaving the way that everybody should behave. You just haven't been told it yet. That's my job. And for those of you out there who have said, oh, well, that's great for the young men, what about the young women? At the very least, I'm going to be producing better young men. That's what the women have at stake. I'm going to be producing a generation of people who are not afraid or ashamed to be heroic, not afraid or ashamed to work hard, make money, not afraid or ashamed to live and die for freedom. All of these things they're doing right now, they're just doing it in a computer world. I'm going to tell them it's okay to do it in the real world too. And that means that every one of those blue states that you saw is populated by people who are told one thing and do something else. You cannot beat the biology out of people. They are going to the world of computer games because the conservatives, because everybody's a conservative, because show business is conservative. I know everybody here thinks that Hollywood leans to the left, and it does, but movies are unbelievably conservative. All movies are conservative, and I can prove it by just saying one simple sentence. The reason I can say that movies are conservative is because James Bond never confronts the evil supervillain armed with a strongly worded letter from the United Nations and then drive off in a Prius at a reasonable speed. That never, ever, ever, ever happens. Ever. That's the left's philosophy. What people want to see is they want to see a good-looking guy who's tough, who's got a gun. And they want to see him racing and risking his life. And they want to save a beautiful girl and confront evil. And it's about an individual. And we're about individuals. And I'm telling you, my friend Breitbart, if he were here, he'd be jumping up and down. I knew him very, very well. But he's right. We got to get into this pop culture. But again, we don't have to change minds. We don't have to change behaviors. We just have to tell them, yeah, that world that you're going into where you're playing a World War II soldier, that game where you're jumping out of an airplane over Normandy, there are people out there who actually did it. There are people up here who actually did it. And they're just the same as you. And they want the same things you do. And if we can give them permission, then we'll get them. This is the last thing I'll say. When I say give them permission, here's what I mean. The most important thing that's happened to this country since Donald Trump was elected was when Kanye West came out in support of Donald Trump. When Kanye West came out in support of Donald Trump, Kanye West is a rap artist, hip-hop artist, and he's extremely popular, young black man, with an ego the size of several states. Kanye West said, I like Donald Trump, I think Donald Trump is cool. Barack Obama called him privately and said, you can't say that. Kanye said, don't tell me what to say. When Kanye West, this pop music star, said he supports President Trump, Donald Trump's real-world approval ratings among black males tripled. Went from 11% to 34% in a week. Why did that happen? That's real numbers. That's the difference between winning and losing an election. When Kanye West says, I think Donald Trump's pretty cool, why does it matter? Well, it matters because the left has told you a story, and the story is Donald Trump was elected by white racists. Only white racists support Donald Trump. Kanye West supports Donald Trump. Therefore, Kanye West must be a white racist. And this is where they start getting into trouble. You've got them. We own them. They're done. They're finished. Tripled his approval numbers. So what Kanye West did, and what I mean to do, is he gave them permission. He gave them permission. What I mean by that is young people could say, well, if Kanye West likes Donald Trump, Kanye West is the coolest guy who's ever walked the earth. If he likes Donald Trump, it's okay for me to like him too. I'm not the only person left in the room. I'm not the last person on earth who believes what I believe. So, the terrible news is that the map is blue, blue, blue. The great news is that the behavior is as red can be. And the question is, are we going to do something or not? So I'm tired of giving the battle space over to these guys. I'm tired of playing defense, and I'm tired of constantly having to walk back the line. I want to go long. I want to be special forces. I want to blow up their ammunition dumps. I want to knock down their bridges. I want the left to look around and say, there's something here that is so cool and so interesting that it's getting people wanting to watch it. And if we can do that, and we can because we are, then I think that's our best chance ever to save this country. So, despair that young people, millennials, vote overwhelmingly Democrats. But be very happy and be faithfully proud that, as I've said for the third time now, you cannot beat the biology out of people. You can make social pressure on young people enough so that they agree and nod and do everything that they're told to do. But young men want to be heroes, and young women want to date heroes. And they want to be heroes too. And this is a world where they get to be heroes. It's our world. We own it. We own them. But we don't own anything because we don't believe in owning people. They are conservatives. We just have to show them. Thank you very much for letting me hear, and I'd love to answer some questions for you. Any questions? Is there a microphone, or you could just shout it out?
No need one. I totally agree with you that not only young people but conservative. I am absolutely convinced that at least half of all the people who vote Democratic are really conservatives.
Absolutely.
Don't know it. I'm always in debates with my friends. I'm not trying to get them to change their opinions. I'm trying to reveal to them what the Democrats really stand for.
Precisely.
But on a separate topic, what would the map look like if those 18 to 25-year-olds could not vote? How many states that were blue would actually be red?
It would be redder. It would be much redder than the election of 2016. If you took young people out, which vote uniformly blue, a lot of states would flip to red. So, but the point is not that they're a voting bloc. The point is not that millennials are a voting bloc. The point is that the millennials are the future of the country. And we are getting older and older and older. And I mean no disrespect from this, but I've been to Tea Party events where I look out there and the average age is, deceased. And if you want to know why young people are not coming into the conservative movement, it's because we're showing them icons and pictures and ideas that are 250 years old, but those ideas are immortal. They were started 250 years ago, but the ideas, freedom, responsibility, all of this stuff, they're immortal. And if you put them in the future, where you've got some sexy dancing robots and flashing lasers and space fighters, then they're going to get the message. They're going to come to me asking me for more message. What do you guys think about this idea?
Speak up. Yes.
I think that's very interesting. Yeah, most young kids follow stuff because it becomes a trend, and that's kind of the stuff that I'm worried about. I have a young nephew, and you see kids wearing all red shoes. Everybody starts wearing red shoes. God forbid, 15 years from now, it's the trend to be, your pronouns. You're like 3 different identities within you. That's the biggest fear I have, is that young kids have a tendency to follow the trends and.
Okay, so let's take that example. That's a great example. He's talking about how they're told about gender fluidity and there's 19 different genders or 29 or whatever the number is and so on. And they shake their head and they go, I don't know what they're talking about, but yes, don't bother me. Yes, I agree. What we're doing here is we're showing what I would normally just call manly behavior. We're showing positive male masculinity. We're showing a male who's a man and not just a male. And it's hard for most of us, I know, to understand this because we're raised differently than these young people are. But most of these young people are raised in single-family homes. Most of these people who are voting blue and checking out and playing video games either didn't have dads at home or didn't have them for very long. They've never had anybody explain to them what being a man is all about. And what being a man is all about is not telling them you can never ever be violent ever. You're wired to be violent. Of course you're wired to be violent. You're a 17-year-old male. You're full of hormones, you're fast, you're strong, and you're aggressive. And you cannot breed that out of them. What a man does, what a father does, a father says, a father doesn't say to his son, You can't be strong and you can't be fast and you've got to be weak and you've got to sit down and eat your broccoli. That's not what a father says. A father says you must use your strength, your speed, your hormones, your aggression. You must use all of these gifts that you've been given to protect weak people, not to prey on them the way that these criminals are. They turn them into sheepdogs, not into wolves. The left is trying to destroy masculinity as an idea. Of course they are. What else would you do if you're an angry feminist or a beta male? What else are you going to do? You've got to discredit the entire idea. There was a psychological report issued by the American Psychiatric Association, surprise, surprise, and it basically said that traditional masculinity, this was 2 weeks ago, traditional masculinity is now considered, it's a form of mental disorder. It's listed in the book. It's a mental disorder. And so here's some of the consequences. Here's some of the consequences of traditional masculinity. If you're suffering from the mental disorder known as traditional masculinity, here are some of the behaviors that might result. You may become a person who's willing to take a risk. You may be the kind of person who's aggressive in trying to get what they want. You may be the kind of person who's not ashamed to say what they want to say. These are identified as pathologies now. No wonder they're leaving. No wonder they're leaving. I would leave too. I'd go anywhere where I didn't have to listen to these weenies. And turns out there's somebody ready to take billions and billions of dollars from them to provide that world. So just by showing a man being a man, and just by showing people doing the right thing and not the smart thing, we are in a way becoming the father that so many of these people didn't have. And I'm not lecturing to them, and I'm not talking to them. I'm showing them. I am showing them. I'm not saying a word. It's going right past the brain, right into the emotional center, the same way every single thing happened with Superman and Family Guy and all the rest. I'm going to hypnotize these people into being good citizens. I'm going to hypnotize them into being men. I'm going to hypnotize them into being capitalists. I'm going to hypnotize them into realizing that all the things they want to do are good things and that they should be able to do it in the real world.
It's another version of a John Wayne movie.
It is exactly that. And we revere John Wayne because we learned how to be men from John Wayne. Our fathers, but also John Wayne. Those examples don't exist anymore. The left purposely changed that. Used to be you would hero, movies about a hero. John Wayne's a hero. Starting with Bonnie and Clyde and Easy Rider, now the bad guys are the heroes. Now it's Bonnie and Clyde who are bank robbers. They're the heroes. The policemen are the criminals. What do you expect from a generation that's been taught nothing but this? What do you expect? This is what they get. This is why they're paying billions of dollars. They want that blue map, but by God, they cannot have it unless everybody else shuts up. And I don't mean to shut up. Yes, ma'am.
So, John's been involved in the Democratic Party as a young woman, and I was a 60s feminist. And I'm remembering, I was in my late 20s, and some friends of mine that were in their 18, 19 came to me and they said, why is it that men have to...
Everyone can hear it.
Okay.
We can hear it. They all can hear it.
So,
They can hear you now.
Maybe not quite so close.
okay. All right, so I was
Let's try over here.
okay.
Should say better.
All right, so I hope this is better.
I think you have to face the audience.
Why don't you try this one? You can make yourself heard. I have confidence that those people in the back will be able to hear you.
Can I be heard right now? Okay. So, as a young woman, I was active in the Democratic Party. I was a 60s feminist. And I remember I was in my late 20s, and some young friends of mine who were like 18, 19, they came to me and they said, why is it that men always have to be bigger, stronger, smarter than us? And I remember even then, I said, yeah, but do you want a man who's smaller, dumber, and weaker? And they did not want that. So I say to you that there is a video to be made from women, for women, and it's not, attracting them sexually. It's saying women have an obligation. Men will do whatever we want them to do because we have the goods. I don't know what to tell you. They will do what we want. And the thing is that you need to show women going to a bar looking for men, and then rejecting the little wimpy Democrats and taking on
I have to
these other
interrupt
guys.
you. I have to interrupt you because I need to say something that goes exactly to what you just said. They did a survey just a couple of weeks ago. They asked the social justice warriors, imagine the most rabid feminists you can, the most absolute Antifa, foaming at the mouth, left-wing, radical young women. They said, what do you think of the feminist men who join you at these protests? Think, no, I'm not interested. The guys think that by being feminist is going to help them get lucky, but that's not what's happening. The absolute warriors, the most angry feminists, admit that these beta males don't do anything for them because you can't beat the biology out of people. And you've got to give them something that they can be attracted to. So, yes, so you're absolutely right. And by the way, just so nobody has any misconceptions, I'm not talking about a world where women do nothing but have babies and work in the kitchen in this world. We've got a woman fighter pilot in there. And this is an interesting thing, because if you go to a movie now, you'll see Scarlett Johansson, who's about this high. She's like 5'2", and you'll see her beat the living daylights out of 7 or 8 6'9" guys who weigh 200 pounds each. She'll just punch them out and knock them out. That's a dangerous precedent to set. So what do I do? How do I deal with this feminism issue? How do I deal with what is equality? How do I deal with it? Well, with my female fighter pilot, here's what I've got. She comes to the guy's office, to the commander's office. It's late at night. She knocks on the door. He says, yes, what would you like? He says, I'd like to talk to you for a moment, sir. He says, okay, come on in. So this young woman fighter pilot sits down, and he says, what can I do for you, Lieutenant? And she says, well, sir, I noticed this at the academy, and I noticed it in training now. The guys have better spatial orientation than I do, and their reflexes are faster than I am. And I want you to tell me how I can beat them. Well, this gets his attention. She's not coming as a victim. She's not coming as... He said, well, since you asked, it's true men are more aggressive than you are, but most of our pilots get killed with target lock. They're so busy trying to shoot down an enemy that they don't even realize what's coming. They get blown up themselves. That's not a disadvantage that you have. You'll be able to keep a better idea on the situation. And he starts working with her, and she becomes his favorite pilot because she came to him with the honesty of the situation. Biologically, these men have faster reflexes, and they've got a better sense of spatial orientation. But she's not saying, well, there still should be half of the squadron should be women, and she's not saying make it easier for me. She's not saying any of those things. She's saying if men have those advantages, they must have some disadvantages. What are their disadvantages so that I can beat them? And that is the message that I think young women would really appreciate. It's a message of individualism. It's not a victim. You're not, not enough women fighter pilots. No, you can be excellent fighter pilots, but you got to understand the rules because you can't beat the biology. So there you go. These are the kind of messages that we can tell all the time, and people will see them and they'll know them and they'll feel it. Anybody else?
Do you have sufficient support for this project?
Pardon me?
Do you have sufficient support for this project?
Well, we are, we're actually looking for donors. We set up a 501c3, but everybody's getting hit for money these days. I plan to take this to a couple of high net worth people and tell them, we need some money to do this right. And one of the best things about this is probably the last thing I'll say. One of the best things about this is by setting up. I have a studio in Sherman Oaks, and the studio floor space is about the size of this stage. Okay, and I'm promising you that in 2 years, in a room this size, I could make Lawrence of Arabia entirely in this room, and you'd never know the difference. Because I can create desert scenes in a computer that look as real as the real world. I can have actors performing scenes that's recording their motions that is as real as anything in the real world. I can make Lawrence of Arabia in a room this size with all of the panoramas and the trains and the horses and the camels and the fights and everything, and you won't be able to tell the difference. That's power. And that is power to get into the culture. And we don't have to win them all. We don't have to convince them all. Let me leave you with this. When you hear me say this is the last time I'm going to say something, once you hear that 5 or 6 times, I'm usually getting ready to go. But here's why we don't have to win every single person. Let's go back to this idea of social proof. Young people are told, not only in school, but definitely in school, they're also told in the pop culture, they're told by the musicians, they're told by comedy, they're told by the news that they're supposed to vote for Democrats because Democrats are smart and they believe in things like global warming, and they shouldn't be Christians because Christians are a bunch of knuckle-dragging Neanderthals who just want to beat up gay people, and they're told all of these things every single day. They're told this every single day. But there is a chance to tell them the actual truth by showing them the truth. And this is the thing I'm trying to get at here. I'm trying to remember what the question was. What were you saying? It's gone. Well, in any event, I guess what I'm trying to say is this. You can have people do what they want, and you can show them, I'm sorry, it came back to me, I beg your pardon. Here's where I wanted to be. I was saying we don't get everybody. We don't have to get everybody, and we don't. So, here's what I mean by we don't have to get everybody. Social proof means everybody around you is saying and doing the same thing, and you will do the same thing that everybody else is doing. They did a psychological experiment where they had a waiting room in a doctor's office, and the subject of the experiment went into the waiting room, and everybody else who was in the waiting room, all different ages and types, everybody else was part of the experiment. So this person, the subject, young man, young woman, whatever, would walk into the doctor's waiting room and sit down. And what they noticed was that every single other person in the room was just tapping their feet, just like that, just tapping their feet. And within 30 seconds, that person started tapping their feet too. They started tapping their feet too because people will do what other people are doing more than they will most of the time follow their most heartfelt beliefs. People want to be seen to be like everybody else. And there's a great story about social proof, and the story about social proof is called The Emperor's New Clothes. So let's just review this very quickly. There is a very vain and stupid person. He's a king, or a queen, let's say. Maybe her name is Hillary, maybe it's something else. But you've got an emperor who's very vain and very stupid, just like the people we're dealing with out there in the real world. And a bunch of con men, 2 con men, come up to this king and they say, "Sir, we are the finest weavers and cloth makers in the entire land, in the entire world, as a matter of fact. We have woven a cloth that is so amazing that the only people who can see this cloth are people who are very smart, very brave, and very virtuous. And we'd like to show it to you because I think you're going to enjoy it." And they open up this casket and they reach down and they pull out nothing. What do you think, Your Majesty? Isn't it amazing? Do you see the way that gold threads pick up the light? What is this king doing? This king has to make a decision. He's been told the only people that can see this are smart people, good people, and brave people. But he can't see it. But he doesn't want them to know he can't see it. So what does he do? He says, "Oh yes, it's spectacular. Amazing. I've never seen such vivid blues. That's absolutely astonishing. The texture of the material, it's unbelievable. I want a suit made of this material right away. How long would it take you to do it?" They say, "Probably 2 weeks and several 100,000 gold pieces. Have it done." Now, the king knows that he can't see it, but he assumes that everybody else can. And that's how social proof works. So, when you get to this parade where the king is showing off his brand new suit of clothes made from this material that only the virtuous can see, he's on a parade, he's going down the street, and he's thinking, "I can't see this, but everybody else can." What is everybody else doing? Everybody else is doing the exact same thing. Every single other person is sitting, "Oh my God, I don't see anything. I can't see anything. I must be a horrible person. I can't let people know that. What do you think of the suit? Oh, it's fantastic, it's great." And every single person is sending proof to every other person that this giant lie is believed by everybody, because if you don't believe the lie, there's something wrong with you. And the reason we don't have to get everybody is this. As the king is going down the procession and everybody's bowing and, "Oh, amazing, the color, all this," a little boy who's not old enough to know better says, "He's not wearing any clothes." That boy gave every single person in the village permission to say that he's not wearing any clothes. That boy gave them permission. He gave them social proof. If there is a fire, if a building's on fire and it's filled with people, and you can hear screams from the inside, you will have 100 people gather on the street outside, and maybe 60% of those people will have physical courage. They're waiting to go in there and rescue people, but they don't have the moral courage to act. When one person goes into that building to save those people, 20 people will follow him immediately, but somebody has to give them permission to do it. That's why psychologists say if you're ever going to have a heart attack in Central Park or in New York City, which I don't recommend, by the way, they said if you go down on the streets of New York City with a heart attack, and the first person walks past you, the next person will walk past you too. Everybody will walk past you if the first person does that. So psychologists say if you're going to have a heart attack on New York City, say, you sir, you in the green shirt, I'm having a heart attack, you, call 911. Now this guy's he's got identity. But if the first person just goes up, didn't see it, that's what everybody else will do. So that's a very simple fight to fight. I just want to be the little boys. It's not, these Democrats are not wearing any clothes. They're not better than us, they're not smarter than us. They're just kind of vain and stupid. And they're naked too. Thank you very much for having me.